The morning sun shone through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Prince William walked down the marble hallway toward his office. He wore his usual navy suit and carried a cup of tea that had already gone cold. Today felt different somehow, but he could not understand why. His secretary, Miss Jenkins, had called him 3 times before breakfast about some evening event. She seemed nervous when she spoke about it, which was strange because Miss Jenkins never got nervous about anything. Catherine was in her private sitting room reading letters from children when William found her. She looked up from a drawing made by a 7-year-old girl from Manchester and smiled at her husband. They had been married for many years now, and she could always tell when something was bothering him. His face had that look he got when he was trying to figure out a puzzle. William sat down in the chair across from his wife and sipped his cold tea. He made a face because it tasted terrible now. Catherine laughed at his expression and rang the bell for fresh tea. There, butler James appeared. Almost immediately, as if he had been waiting right outside the door. This was also strange because James usually took at least a minute to arrive when they called. The butler poured fresh tea for both of them with hands that seemed to shake slightly. Catherine noticed this because James had worked at the palace for 15 years, and his hands never shook. He had served tea to kings and queens and prime ministers without ever spilling a single drop. Today he seemed different somehow, William told Catherine about the mysterious evening event that Miss Jenkins kept talking about. She had said it was a charity gala, but would not give him any details about which charity or who would be attending. When he asked to see the guest list, she said it was still being finalized. When he asked about the program for the evening, she said those details would come later. Catherine had received similar strange messages from her own secretary, Mrs. Roberts. She had been told to wear something special for the evening, but when she asked what kind of special, Mrs. Roberts just smiled and said she would know when she saw it. This was very unusual, because Mrs. Roberts always gave detailed instructions about clothing for every royal event. The couple decided to walk through the palace gardens to clear their minds. As they walked past the rose garden, they noticed several maintenance workers doing unusual things. They were hanging lights in trees, which seemed odd because the palace gardens were not usually lit up for charity events. The workers stopped talking when William and Catherine walked by, smiled at them in a way that seemed like they were keeping a secret. Near the fountain, they saw their head gardener, Mr. Thompson, arranging flowers in patterns they had never seen before. The flowers were white roses and lily of the valley, which Catherine recognized as the same flowers from their wedding bouquet many years ago. When she asked Mr. Thompson about this, he just winked and said the flowers looked nice. In that arrangement back inside the palace, they noticed more strange things happening. The housekeeping staff was cleaning rooms that were already perfectly clean. The kitchen staff was preparing food that smelled much fancier than usual charity event food. Catherine could smell her favorite lemon cake baking, which was odd because lemon cake was not usually served at formal royal events. William went to his office to try to get some work done, but found it very difficult to concentrate. His mind kept wondering about all the strange things happening around the palace. His phone rang several times with calls from people he had not heard from in months. His old university friend Charles called to ask about his health, which seemed random. His cousin Peter called to chat about nothing important. Even his former rugby coach called just to say hello. Catherine was having similar experiences in her office. Friends from her childhood kept calling or sending messages. Her old roommate from university sent a text asking if she was well. Sister Pippa called twice to ask about the children even though she had just seen them the day before. Everyone seemed to be checking on her for no clear reason. By afternoon, the palace was busier than usual. There were more cars in the driveway and more people walking through the halls. Catherine saw several faces she recognized, but could not place where she knew them from. They all smiled and waved at her like they shared some secret she did not know about. William found himself getting more curious and slightly worried as the day went on. In all his years as a royal, he had learned to expect surprises, but this felt different. The palace staff who had worked with him for years were acting like excited children on Christmas morning. Even the serious guards at the palace gates seemed to be hiding smiles. As evening approached, Catherine went to her dressing room to prepare for the mysterious charity event. Her lady's maid Sarah had laid out a beautiful navy blue dress that Catherine had not seen before. It was elegant and formal, but also somehow familiar. When she asked Sarah about the dress, Sarah said it had been specially chosen for tonight, but would not say by whom. William was getting dressed in his own room when his valet brought him a new tie, with silk and deep blue with a pattern that looked familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen it before. His valet Robert seemed unusually happy as he helped William with his collar. Robert had been dressing William for official events for 8 years and had never seemed this excited about a charity gala before. The couple met in the hallway outside their private apartments at exactly 6 o'clock as planned. They both looked elegant and ready for whatever the evening would bring. But both of them felt like they were walking into something much bigger than a simple charity event. The palace around them seemed to be holding its breath with anticipation. William offered his arm to Catherine as they walked down the grand staircase toward the main entrance hall. The palace felt different tonight, with more lights than usual, creating a warm glow on the walls. Catherine noticed that all the family portraits seemed to be looking down at them with knowing smiles. Even the old painting of Queen Victoria seemed to have a twinkle in her eye that had never been there before. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, James the butler was waiting for them, with a silver tray containing 2 glasses of champagne. This was unusual because they never drank champagne before greeting guests at charity events. James smiled wider than Catherine had ever seen him smile, and his eyes seemed to sparkle with excitement. When William asked if the guests had started arriving, James just nodded and said everything was proceeding perfectly according to plan. Catherine took a sip of her champagne and realized it was her favorite kind from France. She wondered how James knew to serve this particular champagne when she had never mentioned it was her favorite. William noticed his champagne was also exactly the type he preferred, which seemed like quite a coincidence for a random charity event. They walked toward the main reception room where charity events were usually held, but James guided them in a different direction. He led them toward the east wing of the palace, which was not normally used for public events. Catherine and William exchanged puzzled looks but followed James down a corridor they rarely used except for very private family gatherings. The hallway was decorated with fresh flowers that filled the air with the most beautiful smell. Catherine recognized the scent immediately as gardenias and white roses, which were the exact flowers from their wedding day many years ago. The flowers were arranged in the same style as their wedding decorations, with white ribbons and tiny pearl details that caught the light perfectly. As they walked, they could hear the sound of people talking and laughing from somewhere ahead. The voices sounded familiar, but Catherine could not quite place who they belonged to. William was having the same experience of recognizing voices but not being able to identify exactly whose they were. The laughter sounded warm and happy, like the kind you hear at family gatherings, rather than formal charity events. They passed several palace staff members, who were all dressed in their finest uniforms and wearing bigger smiles than usual. The maids curtsied lower than normal, and the footmen bowed with extra ceremony. Everyone seemed to be part of some wonderful secret that William and Catherine were about to discover. James stopped at a pair of tall wooden doors that led to one of the palace private dining rooms. These doors were usually only opened for very special family occasions or important state dinners. Catherine had not seen these doors opened in months because this room was reserved for only the most meaningful events. Through the doors, they could hear music playing softly. It was not the usual classical music played at charity events, but something that sounded more personal and emotional. Catherine listened carefully and realized the music included some of her favorite songs from when she and William were first dating at university. James turned to face them both, and his expression became more serious but still very happy. He said that all the guests were waiting inside and that this was going to be a very special evening for both of them. They were ready to go inside and meet everyone who had come to celebrate with them tonight. William asked James what exactly they were celebrating because no one had told them what this event was really about. James just smiled and said they would understand everything as soon as they walked through the doors. He promised them it was something wonderful and that everyone inside loved them very much. Catherine felt her heart beating faster with excitement and nervousness. She squeezed William's arm and told him she was ready for whatever surprise was waiting for them. William nodded and said he trusted James and all the palace staff who had clearly worked very hard to plan something special. James placed his hands on the door handles and paused for a moment. He looked at William and Catherine with tears of happiness in his eyes and told them that this was a night they would remember for the rest of their lives. He said that everyone inside had traveled from far away just to be here with them tonight. Catherine asked James if their children were inside because she suddenly realized she had not seen them since early afternoon. James winked and said the children were part of the surprise and that they had been very good at keeping the secret. This made Catherine even more curious because her children were not usually good at keeping any secrets, especially exciting ones. William straightened his tie one more time, and Catherine smoothed her dress. They both took deep breaths and prepared themselves for whatever wonderful surprise was waiting behind those doors. The music inside grew slightly louder, and they could hear more voices joining in what sounded like singing. James looked at them, both one final time, and asked if they were absolutely ready. When they both nodded yes, he began to slowly push open the heavy wooden doors. The warm light from inside began to spill out into the hallway, along with the sounds of many people who were clearly very excited about something. Catherine gripped William's hand tighter as the doors opened wider. She could see the shadows of many people inside the room, but could not yet make out who they were. The anticipation was almost too much to bear as they prepared to step forward into whatever beautiful surprise had been planned for them by people who clearly cared about them very much. As the doors opened completely, William and Catherine stepped into the room and immediately stopped in amazement. The large dining room had been transformed into something magical that took their breath away. Hundreds of tiny white lights hung from the ceiling like stars, creating the most romantic atmosphere they had ever seen. The lights twinkled and danced, casting gentle shadows on the walls that made everything look like a fairy tale. The first thing Catherine noticed was that the room was filled with people she had not seen in years. Standing near the fireplace was her roommate from university, Sarah, who had shared so many late-night conversations with her when she was first dating William. Sarah was holding a glass of wine and smiling with tears in her eyes as she waved it. Catherine across the room, William spotted his old rugby teammates from his days at the military academy standing together by the windows. They were all wearing their best suits instead of their usual casual clothes, and they raised their glasses to him when they saw him looking. His friend Marcus, who had been his best man, stepped forward and grinned at William like they were still young men planning adventures together. In the center of the room stood a table covered with the most beautiful white tablecloth Catherine had ever seen. On the table was a cake that made her gasp with surprise. It was exactly like their wedding cake from years ago. 3 perfect tiers covered in white icing and decorated with sugar flowers that looked real. The cake was surrounded by white roses and baby breath, just like the flowers at their wedding reception. Catherine turned around, slowly taking in every detail of the room. On one wall hung a large collection of photographs showing their entire relationship from their awkward university days to their most recent family pictures. She saw photos of their first date at a small restaurant near campus where William had been so nervous he spilled coffee on his shirt. There were pictures from their graduation day when they both looked so young and full of dreams. William was staring at a table near the window that displayed items from their courtship that he had not seen in years. His old rugby jersey was there, along with the program from their first official royal event together. There was even the simple bracelet he had given Catherine for her birthday during their second year of dating, before anyone knew they were in love. Their children suddenly appeared from behind the cake, giggling with excitement at having successfully kept such a big secret. Their youngest ran straight to Catherine and hugged her legs while looking up with bright eyes full of pride. The child whispered that they had been hiding in the kitchen helping to decorate the cake, and it had been very hard not to tell Mommy and Daddy about the surprise party. Catherine knelt down to hug her children and felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She asked them how long they had known about this party, and her eldest child said they had been planning it for weeks and weeks. All the phone calls and strange behavior from the palace staff suddenly made perfect sense. Everyone had been working together to create this incredible surprise. William walked over to his old university friends, who were now surrounding him with handshakes and hugs. They told him how they had all received phone calls from the palace staff asking them to come for a very special celebration. None of them had been told exactly what they were celebrating, but they all knew it must be something wonderful to bring them all together like this. Catherine stood up and looked around the room again with new understanding. She saw her old school friends from her hometown standing with her parents, who had somehow managed to keep this secret from her. Her sister Pippa was there wearing the biggest smile and holding a camera to capture every moment of Catherine's surprise and joy. The room was filled with every important person from their lives together. William saw his old army friends mixed with Catherine University classmates, all talking and laughing together like they had known each other for years. The atmosphere was warm and loving, with everyone united by their shared affection for William. And Catherine James, the butler, appeared beside them, carrying a silver tray with 2 fresh glasses of champagne. He told them that everyone in the room had traveled from different parts of the country and even from other countries just to be here tonight. Some people had flown in from as far away as America and Australia because they did not want to miss this special celebration. Catherine asked James what exactly they were celebrating, because she still did not completely understand what this wonderful party was for. James smiled and pointed to a banner hanging above the fireplace that she had not noticed before. The banner was made of white silk with gold letters that spelled out "Happy Anniversary" in elegant script. William looked at the banner and then at Catherine with sudden understanding. Today was their wedding anniversary, but not just any anniversary. It was exactly 10 years since their wedding day. And somehow, in all the busy royal duties and family responsibilities, they had both forgotten the exact date. Catherine put her hand over her mouth in surprise as she realized that everyone she loved most in the world had remembered their special day when they themselves had been too busy to remember. The palace staff had worked with their families and friends to recreate the magic of their wedding day in an intimate celebration. Just for them, their oldest child tugged on William's jacket and told him that everyone had been planning this party. For 2 months, the child said that Grandma and Grandpa had helped pick out all the flowers and that Uncle had helped choose the music. Even the palace cook had practiced making the wedding cake recipe several times to make sure it would be perfect. William and Catherine looked at each other with tears of happiness in their eyes. They were surrounded by everyone who had supported their love story from the very beginning and who had worked together to remind them of how blessed they were to have found each other and built such a beautiful life together. The room suddenly filled with the sound of gentle music as a small string quartet began playing in the corner. Catherine recognized the song immediately as the first dance from their wedding reception 10 years ago. The melody brought back memories of that magical day when they had promised to love each other forever in front of the whole world. William took Catherine's hand and led her to the center of the room, where everyone stepped back to give them space. Without saying a word, he pulled her close, and they began to dance, just like they had on their wedding day. Catherine rested her head on William's shoulder. It felt like she was 29 years old again, dancing with the man of her dreams. As they danced, Catherine could see their guests watching them with smiles full of love and joy. Her mother was wiping tears from her eyes, while William's father stood proudly with his hands clasped behind his back. Their children were clapping along too, the music and giggling at seeing their parents dance so romantically. When the song ended, everyone in the room burst into applause. William and Catherine stayed close together, still holding hands as they looked around at all the faces of people who meant so much to them. Catherine felt overwhelmed by the love in the room and how much effort everyone had put into making this night perfect. Sarah, her old university roommate, approached them with a thick photo album in her hands. She told Catherine that she had put together a collection of pictures from their early dating days that she thought they might like to see. The album was covered in white silk with their names written in gold on the cover. Catherine opened the album and immediately started laughing at the first picture. It showed her and William at a university party, looking very young and awkward. William was wearing a sweater that was too big for him, and Catherine had her hair in a style she now found embarrassing. But they both looked so happy and in love, even in that silly picture. William pointed to another photo that showed them studying together in the university library. He remembered that day perfectly because it was when he first realized he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Catherine. She had been helping him with his history essay and had fallen asleep with her head on his shoulder while he kept working. More friends came forward with their own gifts and memories to share. Marcus's old rugby teammate presented them with a scrapbook filled with newspaper clippings from their wedding day. The headlines were in different languages, showing how their love story had captured hearts all around the world, Catherine's sister. Pippa gave them a beautiful wooden box filled with letters that people had written to them over the years, but that they had never had time to read properly. Pippa explained that she had been collecting these letters from admirers who wanted to tell them how much their relationship had inspired others to believe in true love. Their children then presented them with their own special gift. They had worked with their art teacher to create a painting that showed their family as stick figures holding hands in front of a castle. The painting was not very skilled, but it was filled with so much love that it brought tears to both William and Catherine. The palace cook appeared with several assistants wheeling in carts full of food that smelled absolutely delicious. Catherine was amazed to see that every dish was something special from their relationship. There were fish and chips like they used to eat on casual dates during university. There was the chocolate cake from their first anniversary dinner. There was even the simple sandwiches they had shared during their first picnic together. William's old military friends gathered around them to tell stories about his bachelor party, how nervous he had been before the wedding. They laughed about how he had practiced his wedding vows so many times that he could recite them perfectly, but then forgot them completely when he saw Catherine walking down the aisle in her beautiful dress. Catherine's school friends shared their own memories of helping her get ready for the wedding and how excited they had all been to see their friend marrying a prince. They talked about the late-night phone calls when Catherine would worry about whether she was ready for royal life, and how they had all assured her that love would be enough to get through anything. As the evening continued, more surprises kept appearing. A large screen was set up showing a video that someone had put together using home movies from their courtship and wedding. Catherine watched herself as a young woman laughing and joking with William during their early dates. She could see how natural and comfortable they had always been together, even when cameras were watching. The video showed moments that the public had never seen, including William practicing his proposal speech in front of a mirror and Catherine trying on different outfits before their first official royal event together. There were clips of them playing with dogs at the palace and having snowball fights in the garden during their first winter as an engaged couple. William was particularly moved by a section of the video that showed Catherine learning royal protocol with help from palace staff. He could see how hard she had worked to fit into his world while still staying true to herself. The video captured her natural grace and kindness that had made everyone at the palace love her. Immediately, their guests began sharing toasts and speeches about what William and Catherine's relationship had meant to them personally. Friend after friend stood up to talk about how their love had inspired their own relationships and given them hope that fairy tale romances could still exist in the modern world. Catherine felt her heart overflowing with gratitude as she listened to story after story about how their love had touched the lives of people around them. She had never realized that their relationship had meant so much to so many people, or that their friends had been watching their journey with such care and attention. The evening was turning into the most meaningful celebration of their lives, surrounded by everyone who had helped shape their love story into something truly special. As the night grew later, the atmosphere in the room became even more intimate and personal. The formal speeches had ended, and now people were gathering in. Small groups sharing quieter memories and having deeper conversations. Catherine found herself sitting with her old university friends on comfortable chairs that had been arranged in a circle near the fireplace. Her friend, Akona, told her about a letter she had written to Catherine years ago but never sent. The letter was about how proud she was to watch Catherine handle all the pressure of becoming a royal while still remaining the same kind person she had always been. Emma said she had kept the letter in her drawer for 10 years, waiting for the right moment to share it. Catherine read the letter with tears in her eyes as Emma described watching her friend grow from a shy university student into a confident princess who used her position to help children and families around the world. The letter talked about how Catherine had never forgotten her old friends or changed her values, even as her life became more public and complicated. Meanwhile, William was standing with his father and grandfather looking at the display of photographs from their wedding day. His grandfather pointed to a picture of William looking nervous as he waited at the altar for Catherine to arrive. The old man chuckled and said he had never seen William look so scared and excited at the same time. William's father told him how proud he had been watching his son find true love and build a strong marriage despite all the challenges of royal life. He said that seeing William and Catherine together had given him hope for the future of the royal family because their love was so genuine and their commitment to service was so strong. The children were getting tired but refused to go to bed because they did not want to miss any part of their parents' special night. They had curled up together on a large sofa near the cake table, where they could watch everything that was happening while fighting to keep their eyes open. Catherine went over to check on her children and found them whispering excitedly about how much fun it had been to keep such a big secret. Her youngest child told her that it had been the hardest thing ever not to tell Mommy about the party, especially when Catherine had been feeling sad about being so busy with work recently. This comment made Catherine realize something important. She had been so focused on her royal duties and charity work that she had not been paying enough attention to celebrating the good things in her personal life. The surprise party was not just about remembering their anniversary, but about remembering to appreciate the love and joy that surrounded them every day. William joined his family on the sofa and pulled Catherine close to him while their children snuggled against them. For a few minutes, they sat quietly together, watching their friends and family enjoy the party that had been planned with so much love and care. Sarah approached them, carrying a small wrapped box that she said was the final surprise of the evening. She explained that everyone at the party had contributed something to create a very special gift that would help them remember this night forever. Catherine carefully unwrapped the box to find a beautiful leather journal with their names engraved on the cover. Inside the journal, every guest at the party had written a personal message about what William and Catherine relationship meant to them. The messages were not formal or fancy, but were written from the heart, with simple words that expressed deep feelings of love and admiration. Catherine read message after message from people who had watched their love story unfold over the years. Her old boss wrote about how Catherine had always talked about William with such happiness during their early dating days. William Army friend wrote about how much William had changed for the better after meeting Catherine, becoming more confident and peaceful. One message that particularly touched Catherine came from their oldest child teacher, who had written about how clear it was that William and Catherine had built their family on a foundation of real love and respect. 8. The teacher said that their children were some of the happiest and most secure kids she had ever taught because they felt so loved at home. William was reading over Catherine's shoulder and was moved by a message from his grandmother, former lady-in-waiting who had known him since he was a small child. She wrote that she had watched many royal marriages over the years, but had never seen one built on such genuine friendship and shared values as his marriage to Catherine. As they continued reading the messages together, William and Catherine began to understand something important about their relationship. They had been so focused on their public duties that they had forgotten to celebrate the private miracle of finding each other and building a life filled with so much love and support. The party began to wind down as guests started saying their goodbyes. Each person hugged William and Catherine tightly and thanked them for letting them be part of such a special celebration. Many people said they felt honored to witness such a beautiful example of lasting love in a world where relationships often seemed fragile. Catherine's parents were among the last to leave, and her mother told her how happy it made her to see Catherine so surprised and joyful tonight. Her mother said that sometimes when you are busy taking care of everyone else, you forget to let other people take care of you and show you how much you are loved. William's father also stayed late to help clean up and to spend a few more minutes with his son. He told William that watching him and Catherine together reminded him of the early days of his own marriage, when everything felt possible and love seemed strong enough to overcome any challenge. As the room slowly emptied, William and Catherine found themselves alone with their sleeping children and the beautiful remnants of their surprise party. The cake still sat on the table with only a few pieces missing. The flowers still filled the air with their sweet scent. The photographs still covered the walls, showing the journey of their love story. They stood together in the quiet room, holding hands and looking around at everything that had been created to celebrate their love. Neither of them could quite believe that so many people cared enough about them to plan such an elaborate and meaningful surprise. Catherine leaned against William's shoulder and whispered that this had been the most perfect night of her life since their actual wedding day. William kissed the top of her head and told her that he felt the same way, and that he never wanted to forget how loved and blessed they both were. The palace staff, quietly, began cleaning up around them, but moved very slowly, as if they did not want to disturb the magical feeling that still filled the room. James the butler approached them with a gentle smile and asked if they would like him to arrange for the flowers to be moved to their private sitting room so they could enjoy them. For a few more days, Catherine nodded gratefully and asked James how long he had been planning this surprise. James told her that the idea had come to him 3 months ago when he overheard her mentioning to William that she felt like they never had time to celebrate their personal milestones anymore because of their busy royal schedule. James explained that he had contacted their families and closest friends to see if they would be interested in creating a special anniversary celebration. Everyone had immediately said yes and had offered to help in any way they could. The planning had taken weeks of secret phone calls and careful coordination to make sure William and Catherine would not discover what was happening. William was amazed to learn that even their children had been involved in the planning for over a month. Their eldest child had helped choose which photos to display, while their youngest had insisted that the cake should be exactly like the wedding cake, because that would make Mommy and Daddy happiest. The children were now sleeping peacefully on the sofa covered with soft blankets that someone had brought from their bedrooms. Catherine looked at them with such tenderness, knowing that they had worked so hard to keep this wonderful secret, to make their parents feel special and loved. William carefully picked up their youngest child, while Catherine gathered their eldest. They carried their sleeping children upstairs to their bedrooms and tucked them into their beds with extra kisses and whispers of gratitude for being such amazing little secret keepers. When they returned downstairs, the room had been mostly cleaned, but James had left the most important items for them to pack away themselves. The photo albums were stacked neatly on a small table, along with the journal full of messages from their friends. The remaining flowers had been arranged in beautiful vases that they could take to their private rooms. Catherine picked up the silk banner that had announced their anniversary and held it close to her heart. She told William that she wanted to keep it forever as a reminder of how much love surrounded them. Even when they were too busy to notice it themselves, William was looking through the photo album that Sarah had made and stopped at a picture of Catherine from their university days. In the photo, she was laughing at something he had said, and her eyes were sparkling with joy. He realized that she still looked at him the same way today, and that their love had only grown deeper and stronger over the years. They sat together on the sofa where their children had been sleeping and looked through all the gifts and mementos from the evening. Each item told a story about their relationship and reminded them of important moments they had shared together. Catherine opened the journal again and read more of the personal messages that their friends had written. One message from William's cousin talked about how their marriage had shown everyone in the royal family that it was possible to find true love and still fulfill their duties to the country. Another message from Catherine, old teacher, mentioned how proud she was to see her former student using her position as a princess to help children around the world get better education and support. The teacher said that Catherine had always been kind and caring, but now she had the power to make a real difference in many lives. William found a message from his old rugby coach, who wrote about how marriage to Catherine had made William a better leader and a more confident person. The coach said that love had given William the strength to handle all the pressures of royal life while staying true to his own values and beliefs. As they read these messages together, William and Catherine began to understand that their relationship is not just important to them personally, but it also inspired and encouraged many other people. Their friends and family had been watching their love story unfold and had been cheering for them. Every step of the way, Catherine realized that she had been feeling overwhelmed by her royal duties lately because she had forgotten about all the people who supported her and believed in her. Tonight had reminded her that she was not facing the challenges of royal life alone, but was surrounded by love and encouragement from so many directions. William felt grateful that their friends had taken the time to remind them of how far they had come together and how much they had accomplished as a team. Sometimes in the middle of busy royal schedules, it was easy to forget to appreciate the beautiful life they had built together. They decided to write their own messages in the journal. To their future selves, Catherine wrote about how surprised and happy she felt tonight, and how she wanted to remember to celebrate the good things in life more often. She promised herself that she would not let royal duties make her forget about the importance of love and family and friendship. William wrote about how grateful he felt to have found Catherine and to have built such a strong marriage with her. He promised that he would make more effort to show her how much he appreciated her and would not take their love for granted even. When life got busy and stressful, as the palace clock chimed midnight, they realized that their anniversary day was officially over, but the feelings of love and gratitude would stay with them for a long time. They stood up together and took one final look around the room, where they had been reminded of how blessed they truly were. Catherine picked up a single white rose from one of the arrangements and tucked it into the journal so that the flower would be pressed between the pages as a permanent reminder of this perfect night. William gathered the photo albums and other gifts so they could take them to their private rooms. They walked hand in hand through the quiet palace hallways toward their bedrooms, feeling closer to each other than they had in months. The surprise party had not only celebrated their past 10 years together, but it also reminded them of why they had fallen in love in the first place and why their marriage was worth celebrating every single day. As they reached their bedroom door, Catherine turned to William and told him that she loved him more today than she had on their wedding day 10 years ago. William pulled her close and whispered that he felt exactly the same way, and that he was looking forward to many more years of loving her, being surprised by the wonderful life they would continue to build together. As the evening progressed, William and Kate began to notice familiar faces arriving, people they hadn't seen in years. Former classmates from their university days at St. Andrews appeared, followed by childhood friends and distant relatives who rarely attended official functions. Kate's heart began to race as she spotted her old roommate from their early dating days, someone she hadn't seen since before the wedding. William's eyes widened slightly when he recognized his rugby teammates from his military academy, all dressed in formal attire and wearing suspiciously knowing smiles. The couple continued their duties as gracious hosts, but the mounting presence of so many meaningful people from their past created an atmosphere of anticipation that was becoming impossible to ignore. They began stealing glances at each other more frequently, both clearly wondering what surprise awaited them behind the growing mystery. The palace's head butler approached them with unusual formality, announcing that all guests had arrived and were ready for the evening's main event. William and Kate followed him through familiar corridors that somehow felt different tonight, past portraits of their ancestors and through rooms filled with royal history. As they walked, they could hear the murmur of excited voices growing, louder, punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter that seemed oddly personal and intimate for a formal royal gathering. Kate's hand found William's arm as they approached the main drawing room, both of them maintaining their composed exterior. While internally preparing for whatever surprise awaited them, the butler paused at the ornate double doors, his hand on the golden handles, and turned to give them a smile that seemed to hold years of palace secrets. The heavy doors swung open slowly, revealing a room transformed beyond recognition. Instead of the expected formal gathering, the space was filled with a warm, golden glow from hundreds of twinkling lights strung across the ceiling like stars. Every surface was covered with photographs spanning their entire relationship, from their awkward university days to their most recent family portraits. Tables displayed mementos from their courtship, their wedding, and precious moments with their children that had never been publicly shared. In the center of the room stood a magnificent cake that perfectly recreated their wedding cake from years ago, surrounded by flowers from Kate's childhood garden and William's favorite rugby memorabilia. The guests, their friends, family, and loved ones stood beaming with joy, holding champagne glasses raised in celebration of what was clearly a surprise. anniversary celebration planned with meticulous care and deep love. For the first time, in years of public appearances, William and Kate's royal composure completely crumbled. Kate's hand flew to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes, while William stood frozen in amazement, his usual reserved demeanor replaced by pure, unguarded emotion. The room erupted in cheers and applause as the couple realized that their staff, family, and friends had conspired for months to recreate the magic of their wedding day in an intimate celebration of their enduring love story. Kate wiped away tears of joy as she spotted their children hiding behind the cake, giggling with delight at having successfully kept the secret. William pulled his wife close, both of them laughing and crying simultaneously as they were surrounded by the people who had witnessed and supported their love story from its very beginning. In that moment, stripped of their royal duties and public personas, they were simply William and Kate, a couple overwhelmed by love, gratitude, and the beautiful surprise that reminded them why their fairy tale had captured the world's heart.